Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode, actually, episode 10
Hallelujah.
of the Truth-Unspoken.
Yeah.
And every week we have been targeting on alerting parents what's going on with our schools, what's going on with our children, what's going on with our government, what's going on with our laws. A lot of things, what's very encouraging is we're getting more and more material and data that parents are starting to stand up. Thank you to everyone that's subscribing and following and sending out the message and alerting more. The whole deal is we want to bring attention to these things that are not being talked about. We want to bring truth to lies and deception, and we want to form a unity of people that want righteousness and want to protect our children. It's already beyond serious, but it's just in our faces now. And we have to, there are parents that are reaching out and are doing things, but we need to come together more. So now there's been a lot of communication. There's been a lot of reports coming in. There's been a lot of people getting on board. It's exciting and sad at the same time that we actually have to do this honestly, to where we have to be aware of dangers at our own children's schools. And I'm not talking about the regular dangers of, you know, guns coming and being shot or shot around school, that type of danger, but more of a danger that is subtle and is being silently and voiciously put on display. And a lot of it has happened behind the scenes that most of us are unaware of. And so we have some videos and we have some more material tonight. We're going to play more videos of more data that we got. That's what this episode is going to be about. Of course, what we do is we show that the Bible is real and the Bible is alive, and God is real and God is alive,
Yep.
and that his attention is on these things in our country and in the world. And so here in California, we have a lot of uphill battles, but nothing is impossible for God. And if we come into agreement and unity about saving our children, a lot of things will start becoming unturned. But it starts there. And, so we have different things that. So what we've been doing is we've been building episode week by week and tying things together, exposing things, and we're just going to continue on that path. And we have a lot of stuff to reveal, and so we doing it one at a time because if not, we'd have to have 5 and 6 hour podcasts, which nobody's going to watch that, right? Not nowadays. An hour is really tough for to give out information. But the thing about it is when it's life and death information, there shouldn't really be a time limit. But just in the society of how we're being taught and we're being raised to have very short attention spans and pay attention not very much to details. These are subliminally and blatantly being taught to the generations. And so that's why we have a lot of issues that we have. Stopping, taking time to pay attention to what's really going on. And once we do that and start, our eyes become open and our ears become open, then we understand the threat that we're up against. Is going to take all of us. It's
Yep.
going to take all of us. It's going to take everybody that has any type of goodness inside of them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is understanding that all of this is pushed by money,
Yep.
and it's being deceptively put as though it's for an equal rights or a rights situation. And in all actuality, rights, if we really believe in them and we really want to talk about them, they're for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when they're pushing the rights for this agenda, of confusion and deception and destruction and death, when they push that as an equal rights situation, then it gets people to compromise because you believe that it is for, the equality of everyone. But if it was for the equality of everyone, then what happens to these people that fall into this or are guided into this, and then their own light turns on and says, hey, this is not right. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a part of this. Then can I get help? There's none. So equal rights means that, okay, for the people that have this had happened to, where are their rights that say, I don't want to be this anymore, or I want to go back to how I was? There's no help. There's no programs. There's no doctors. There's therapists. There's no one for these people, which, 65% of them in America are killing themselves. And we've provided all the stats, and you can go watch back, and I encourage you to watch the episodes previous to the ones. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the show. If not, those that have been watching, if you're following along, it just continues. It just continues. Yeah. And so week by week, we're revealing, we're exposing, we're explaining, and we're also bringing God's view into what's taking place and how everything that's happened, you can find it in the scriptures, and we're here giving evidence of these things, really, And so I don't want to ramble on and keep rambling, but we have some very serious videos that we want to show tonight, and we will break them down as always. And I think let's start with the we'll talk about that. Let's start with the outraged, the parents outraged. I believe
the mother or the parents?
No, the parents.
Parents?
Yes.
All right, 1 second. Okay.
Here we go.
A California kindergarten teacher is facing outrage after discussing gender identity with her students. One child came to the teacher with books on the subject while going through a gender transition. Now the teacher is defending herself. Sharon Roget from CBS station KOVR in Sacramento has the story.
And what I will share over and over again is how proud I was of my students.
An emotional Rockland Academy teacher addressing a packed house of parents, many furious about her decision to discuss the topic of gender identity inside her kindergarten class.
It was never my intent to harm any students, only to support them through a difficult situation.
The teacher defended her actions to read 2 books she says were given to her by a transgender child going through a transition.
The kindergartners came home very confused about whether or not you can pick your gender, whether or not they really were a boy or a girl.
Parents say besides the books, the transgender student at some point during class also changed clothes and was revealed as her true gender. And many parents say they feel betrayed and blindsided.
I want her to hear from me as a parent what her gender identity means to her and to our family. Not from a book that may be controversial.
My daughter went home crying, shaking, so afraid that she could turn into a boy.
The issue was not on the agenda, so parents spoke out during Monday night's public comment.
It's really about the parents being informed and involved and, giving us the choice and the rights about, what's getting introduced to our kids and at what age.
Many teachers also speaking out in support of what transpired inside the classroom on the last days of the academic year.
Head in the direction of banned books or book lists or selected literature that should only be read inside or outside of the classroom. I think that that's a very dangerous direction to go.
Hi, I'm Sam Jordan, Director of Human...
Okay, some key words given out there, right? One, confusion, right? You heard the parents say that, the children are going home confused. So that's the number one thing. If you can confuse people, guess what? You can insert pretty much anything that you want to insert. When people are confused, then guess what? Then they're afraid, right? So confusion, fear, and deception. You heard the teacher say she really meant no harm, right? You really meant no harm. Okay. Now, if she was a teacher that educated herself and she looked at the after effects as we've been breaking down, I'm not a teacher. None of us here are teachers.
Nope.
So a teacher's job is to have information on whatever it is they're going to be teaching about, right? So if she's teaching, if she's reading books that is causing confusion, inserting confusion and inserting fear. You heard one of the little girls went home and she was scared and she was shaking. Now, what about these children? What about their rights? Right? So we just want to talk about the transgender rights or the rights of the people to introduce and to plant seeds and to water them of transgender, which is, remember, we've been breaking down, which is money motivated. We already went through the stats of the prices of the surgery to turn from whatever sex you are to the next sex is the minimum that the doctor will make is $6,900 all the way up to $69,000. And these surgeries for minors are being approved in less than 30 minutes from insurance companies. So this is already information that we've already established. Now, how as a teacher do you not know that? Right? So if you're going to present something, you need to have the balance on what does it all entail, right? So if this is not harmful, if you didn't mean to be harmful, then why are you pushing and pressing something onto kindergarten age children where the stats are showing that 65% of them are committing suicide and over 80% at least have contemplations of suicide? That seems extremely harmful to me. But a teacher that's teaching our children doesn't know that that's harmful, right? And so she's crying, she's emotional because she really feels like she's doing something to help. This is complete ignorance because when you're trying to do something that helps, that means you have a full understanding of what you're implementing to help, right? So that means you should have a full understanding of whatever subject that's being projected. If it is truly helpful, then there would be large percentages of that help being evident. But there's the evidence shows that the harm of it is way more severe and way more numerous and can't even be compared in numbers, right? If it can't be compared in numbers, how does it go from you're trying to be helpful? No, there's money behind this. And there's deception behind this, right? And so the parents were saying that, hey, it's our job. It's your job to let us know what you want to do with our children. See, there used to be a day where you could drop your children off at school and they're going just to learn about school.
Right.
They're going to learn about math, English, tutor, science. They're learning about the things that we learned about in school. Never ever did I and I went to public school. I was in private school and public school. And neither one of them had any type of speech about, did I think I was a girl? And we were not allowed to go into the girls' bathroom. Period. We already established last week that when it comes to this subject, when it comes to the Olympics and professional athletes, when they created a division for them to show up, all the transgender people and compete, not one person showed up. This is international now.
Yep.
This is globally.
Yep.
So if it is truly helpful, right? Then there would be way more stats of progression, and there's not. So I believe that no one showing up to that course of event is a large proof. I mean, it'd be different if it was like 3 people,
Right.
At least somebody showed up. But 0 for the globally, there's some things that, the old saying, action speaks louder than words.
Yep.
That's pretty much action of no one showing up shows how important this really is, right? But guess what? That was on the international stage. But see, but when we come down to America, it's being pushed so much is because doctors are selling their souls, people are selling their souls for money.
Yep.
They don't care the cost. They don't care that if it's children that are being mutilated. And they don't care that if they don't tell you they're going to mutilate your children. They don't care because at the end of the day, they're getting a check and they're getting more and more checks. And more doctors of other fields are being persuaded and enticed to learn how to do these surgeries. Right? So I want to go to the next one. Let's play, and this, let's play, yes, let's play the doctor.
Grossman, for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you. My name is Miriam Grossman. I am a board-certified child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist, author, and senior fellow at Do No Harm. I have been taking care of patients for 45 years. I'm going to use my time to respond to Dr. McNamara. First, I'm struck by her use of the phrase, sex assigned at birth. Sex is not assigned at birth. Sex is established at conception, and it's recognized at birth, if not earlier. Dr. McNamara claims that her views are science-based, but to claim that sex is assigned at birth is without any scientific basis whatsoever. Its language misleads people, especially children, into thinking that male and female are arbitrary designations and can change. That is simply not true. Dr. McNamara claims that social and medical interventions are the only evidence-based treatment and that scientific evidence shows it is life-saving. Without it, she's warning us, kids will commit suicide. Well, a growing number of countries have effectively banned the care to which she's referring. And thank God there's been no wave of suicides or other mental health catastrophes. 3 years ago, Finland placed strict limitations on medical interventions for minors. Sweden did the same thing after a 14-year-old girl was found to have osteoporosis and spinal fractures from puberty blockers. An investigation concluded, quote, the risks of anti-puberty and hormone treatment for those under 18 currently outweigh the possible benefits. The UK conducted a review and called the evidence very low. They've also placed severe restrictions on the care that Dr. McNamara calls life-saving. Norway also analyzed the data and has made similar changes in policy. The National Academy of Medicine in France warned, quote, great medical caution must be taken in children and adolescents given the vulnerability of this population and the many undesirable, even serious complications the therapies cause. Doctors in New Zealand and Australia have published similar statements. Is Dr. McNamara suggesting that all these countries are rejecting evidence-based treatment and placing their kids at risk of suicide? Regarding that point of view, Finland's gender expert, Dr. Rita Kaltiela, said, quote, it's purposeful disinformation, the spreading of which is irresponsible. All 7 countries, and Florida too, of course, concluded that kids don't need their development interrupted, the girls don't need their periods stopped and their voices lowered, and the boys don't need to grow breasts. What they need is psychotherapy. I have other objections to Dr. McNamara's testimony. She insists that her position, only hers, represents standard medical care. What she doesn't want you to know is that there is no standard. There's a debate. There's a fierce debate. And on the side opposite her stand such prominent figures as Stephen Levine, Kenneth Zucker, Paul McHugh, and James Cantor, among others. These doctors are giants in the field. They have been treating transgender patients and gathering data and publishing papers about them, and I mean no disrespect here, but since before Dr. McNamara was born. The point is that those veteran clinicians and others who have wisdom and experience are ignored because they disagree with the current narrative. They're against medical interventions for the same reason those 7 countries are. There is no evidence of long-term benefit, but there is evidence of harm. I'll end by quoting Jamie Reed, the courageous whistleblower from the Children's Gender Clinic in St. Louis. I believe that hospital receives the medical education funding that we're discussing today. She said that doctors at that clinic said, "We are building the plane while we are flying it." We are building the plane while we are flying it. That's how they described the treatment at their gender clinic. Our precious tax dollars should not support such a perilous experiment. Thank you.
Well, so for those that try to say about the science, right? There's all this speech about the science benefits of it. Well, there's one area of stats by professionals, and as you heard her say, doctors that are giants in the field. And it sounds like the same exact words that I just said about the harm versus the benefit, and the harm is outweighing the benefit by far. When something is beneficial, that means that it benefits the majority, right? If it's really truthfully beneficial and it's really truthfully helpful, right? That means that majority people, whatever it may be, if they partake in it, there's going to be benefits. But when you have 80% that are on the other side of, okay, indulging in this, whether it's being led, whether it's being deceived, whether it's being confused, all these categories is what they're using. And so when you have majority that are damaged or destroyed, then you have to relabel this as harmful. You cannot say it's beneficial, right? And so what's good is what we've been talking about is having schools, creating schools, right? Taking our children out of public schools and put them into private and charter schools, which the waiting list is way higher than the amount of schools can handle this need, right? It's supply and demand. It's real simple. The demand is for our children to be safe and our children to be able to disclose to us what's going on at their school, which the therapists are telling them. And you see, so there are good psychiatrists. She was a psychiatrist, but she's also coming from this point of I'm seeing the damage of this, and so I'm here in this field to expose the truth.
Yep.
Right? And so the beautiful thing about it is parents are waking up, but people are coming together, people are joining, and we actually have a video of a lady locally here in California. And she was on Fox News, San Diego division. So that's where we're at. And so we're also going to play videos of parents that are actually taking action. And then we have some videos of parents that were a little bit behind or weren't fully told what was going on and the devastations. Now remember, at any time, one of these can be one of your children.
Yep.
Or one of your grandchildren. So we're going to show videos today, and we're going to show data today that really hits home and lets us know how close it can get. So I want to play the lady that came to Fox News, San Diego, the one that she's suing the school district.
Okay. Fox.
Yeah. Fox News. There we go.
The immune system is complex, like really complex. If it's underactive, your defenses are low. If it's
A New York Times op-ed claims that children should be able to transition genders because they need freedom to make mistakes. It's titled, "There is no way to live a life without regret." It says, quote, "What are we saying, really, when we worry that a child will regret this particular decision, the decision to transition? And how is it different, really, from the decision I made to quit competitive swimming?" Joining us now, we have Jessica Cohen. She is a California mom whose daughter was once socially transitioned to a boy by her school, didn't notify her. And then we have Center for American Liberty Executive Director Mark Trammell. Thank you all both for being on with us.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Jessica, what's your reaction to this? First of all, tell us the story about what happened to your child. I know you sued California School District. You actually won. Tell us what happened and your reaction to this article.
Well, I personally experienced a lot of secrecy. I experienced a troubled child. I feel like our schools have thought that they could possibly parent better. They decided to make adult choices with my child. There was a lot of hush-hush and a lot of behind the parents' back, and it's emotionally traumatizing to our children. They are doing things that are inappropriate, and I feel that my child was one of the survivors out of this horrible mess that's happening.
And what's your reaction to this article comparing it to, quitting the swim team?
To be super honest, that's stupidity at its finest. You cannot compare a swim team to our poor children. These type of mistakes are causing our children to either, in their lives, they regret things. Of course, we all make mistakes, but it's our job as parents to love them, to guide them, direct them from making those poor mistakes. Of course, we want our kids to have freedom, but they have enough freedom as children. Let them be children. These type of things. A mistake is an action that is misguided. It's not adequate information. They don't have enough knowledge about things. They should not be making adult choices, and comparing it to, quitting a swim team versus sexually transitioning or cutting off body parts. These are our children. That's the horrible, type of, example that she could have used. This type of freedom that she is expressing in her article, it's harming our children. It is not making them feel like, regretful. This is harming our children.
Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a cold and callous perspective to take. Our laws protect kids because kids lack the capacity to understand the nature and the consequences of some of the decisions that they're confronted with, right? And the Center for American Liberty, we were able to represent Jessica and her daughter, and Jessica's a hero. She filed this lawsuit and won, and has inspired more parents to do the same. We also represent 3 young women who have gone through surgical transitions as minors and who are experiencing that regret today. And as adults, many of us as parents, we should be doing everything we can to protect other kids from experiencing that irreversible damage and trauma that those young women are experiencing today.
Yeah, Jessica, why are they trying to normalize this and act like it's not a big deal?
You know what? I'm really not sure why they have such a huge grip on our children, but their mistakes that our children are making, they're supposed to be able to innocently make those mistakes. But the mistakes that are being made now, they're not. They're life choices. They're causing our children, like my own mental issues, depression. My daughter almost committed suicide due to her freedom of mistakes. And her mistakes were not so much hers. They were, encourage the mistakes that she should try to make, So
Jessica, she was only
they
11,
should leave
right?
our children alone, period. Our kids have enough freedoms. It's absurd. It's ignorance. It's child abuse to not sit there and parent our kids and have interest in them and not guide them away from making that poor mistake.
How is she doing
I
now?
understand mistakes,
Wasn't she
but there's a
11 years old?
difference.
What grade is that? 11 is what, like 3rd grade, 4th grade?
She just started 6th grade, actually. But yeah,
My gosh.
it starts
How's she-
earlier, to be honest, and it's
how-
heartbreaking.
Yeah, how's she doing?
She's doing wonderful. She's in Disneyland, and she's having a wonderful time. Her smile is so genuine, the love she has for herself. You know, she was lost momentarily, but by the grace of God and by the support of everyone and her finding herself, she's doing so good. Okay. I'm so proud of her.
Jessica, Mark, thank you so much for coming on.
Now, certain language I want to point out is when she was asked, why do you think this is, right? Why do you think that they're doing this with the children? She said, I don't know. And see, that's what we're here to point out and expose in this channel. Now, we've already reached out to Jessica. She's responded back to us, and we will be having her on as a guest. So this is starting to happen more and more, and it will continue to happen because we want to connect with everybody that can see what's going on. You notice how they were saying how the person that made the article is no life without regret, meaning, you know, everyone gets a chance to make mistakes. Yes, but children that's not a mistake that's gonna happen when you're manipulated and you're guided. You heard what Jessica said, encouraged. Those are not mistakes.
Nope.
Those are intentional destructions. And remember why? Because every child that they can get that surgery for without the parents' permission, they get checks. And then the you heard the doctor previous to her talking about the hormones, the changing the hormones that change the voices and stop puberty and all this. Then she went into the actual physical effects those are having, right? And so that's because we're dealing with undeveloped, not finished growing children. So this and to compare, I mean, just think about how we have to discuss that. Why we have to discuss about stopping our children from being butchered and chopped up. This is the conversation we're having every week. That we have to actually fight against our own school districts and our own political people in charge that are supposed to protect us and supposed to protect our children. We have to fight and be threatened to lose our rights, lose funding to our schools because we're not in agreement with butchering children. This is our conversation every week. This is our discussion every week. Who would think that in the time that we would have to fight to stop our children from being chopped up for money, and then if we do fight against that, we're called bigots and racists and extreme terrorists because we don't want our children butchered. And we have enough common sense. Now, see, that's where this is getting blown open because you have people that, like you heard the one kindergarten teacher. Think about it, kindergarten. That was a kindergarten teacher said, "I don't see the harm. My intent was not to do harm, but my intentions were out of ignorance." Now, I don't know if she's just fully ignorant or she's getting some type of kickback for doing that. You don't know. You know, I'm not making any judgment calls. I'm just going on what I'm listening to and what I'm seeing. Yeah. So I can't logically understand how a kindergarten teacher is seeing helpfulness in confusing children. See, me, if I was really trying to help, as soon as the one mother said, my daughter came home shaking from going to school to learn about ABCs, because that's what we're learning in kindergarten, right? How to write our name, our ABCs. As soon as one parent, now this is me being a teacher, if I hear one parent say my child came home shaking, terrified because thought she was gonna turn into a boy, I'm good. That's enough.
Yeah.
I understand. If what I did caused that drastic effect, that means I need to rethink what I'm teaching.
Yeah.
But to get up there and cry and defend herself, that means that what happened to those children, it didn't affect her at all. Think about it. You're crying because you didn't mean any harm, but you still supporting and stand by what you did. But the children that are confused and at home and scared from going to school, that didn't affect you enough to bring tears. We have to understand there's something behind this. And so anyways, I want to say I'm grateful to Jessica for reaching out, and we're coordinating on when we can talk and when we can get together and get more information and find out, what did she do, because she sued the state and won.
Yeah, we want that information.
Yeah, we want that information. We need her to help spread that information to other parents, other groups that are fighting the same fight, and she won already. So we need that information because our school district just got fined $1.5 million for not wanting to incorporate the LGBTQ curriculum, which ultimately goes into abomination against God. That's what we're in. So the next one is we're going to play another video of another father, another family, of what's going on. I think is in Connecticut, and the action that him and his wife took is very encouraging. And this is happening everywhere, so we just want to bring it to light. Go ahead, we ready? All right.
So, Kyle, you are out in Connecticut, and you recently pulled your children out of a public school system there. What was it that led up to that decision?
So there have been a lot of moves that have happened at the school level over the last couple of years, and this brother was really the straw that broke the camel's back. The latest incident was when the principal at the elementary school stood in front of a pride flag and forced all the students to watch a 45-second long video where students declared that, if you're a boy but you feel like a girl, you could be a girl, or you could be a they, or you could be whatever you want to be. We have replaced education with indoctrination, and this has been getting worse and worse over the last couple of years. This honestly, arguably, wasn't even the worst thing that happened. This was just the final straw.
Was this at an assembly the school held for Pride? You said that the principal was in front of a Pride flag. They show this video. What was the context of why they were doing this?
Morning announcements celebrating Pride Month. And again, we're talking about a school that over the last couple of years has been reading our books, or reading our kids' books about transgender crayons and racist white police officers and families of illegal immigrants that feel like they're being discriminated against. And the school has been working extraordinarily hard to hide all of this. Brother, my wife put it best when she said, if this was such a crucial and important topic that you had to talk to 8-year-olds about it, then why was it not so crucial that you had to alert the parents about it?
So you were not contacted, the families were not, because a lot of times schools will reach out and say, we're going to do this event, you can opt in or out. There was no communication?
None. Not only was there no communication, but when called out on it by the media afterwards, the principal essentially doubled down on it and made it very clear that they have no responsibility to tell parents about it. When parents started complaining about these books that were being read to the kids, the principal's response was, well, we haven't had other parents complain about it, to which everybody pointed out, nobody knew about it. You didn't alert anybody. And her response was, well, we don't have to.
If you have an hour this week, you can learn 100 songs on the piano.
Interesting. But I mean, it seems like you and others, it's not just you, are voicing concern about this now that you know about it.
That's correct. And here's the thing. I didn't want to be in this fight. I didn't want to take this fight because I didn't want my kids to end up being discriminated against or retaliated against in the schools. With the work that I do, I already deal with enough haters, right? But now they've come after my kids and they've come after all of our kids. And here's the thing. We are in a red community. And so people who are in conservative communities tend to think this isn't happening in my school. This isn't happening in my town. It is happening right under our noses and nobody knew. And everybody's afraid to speak out about it because they're afraid that these schools will retaliate against their kids. They're afraid of, like, I woke up this morning to death threats, threats of violence, promises to come after our kids. I'm being told that I'm a homophobe, a sexist, a racist, all because we are fighting to protect innocent children.
You know, there's so many questions I have about this. You make this decision to take the kids out. That's a big decision. You have 4 kids, right? Under the age of 9? Is that accurate?
Yep. 8, 6, 4, and 2. And God's got a good sense of humor, man. He gave us 4 little girls. Greatest blessing in the world.
So you've got 4 little girls. It's a big decision. You know, there's a big debate about should you have your kids as a Christian in public schools or not. My kids are in public school, honestly, my 2 kids, and we're constantly monitoring and looking to see sort of what's going on. But that's a big decision. What are you going to do with your kids now that you've taken them out of public school? Where will they go?
So thank God my wife is a lot smarter than I am, much more well-spoken. She's going to be homeschooling our girls. We plan on actually relocating my businesses to Florida and to be moving for 7 months out of the year down to Florida so that our kids are in a safer location. And so it's not a decision I take lightly. I was blessed to be with Sam Sorbo last week, and we were talking about the need to take a very faith-based approach to how we raise our children. And part of that, we have a duty and a responsibility as parents to look out for the hearts and souls of our little kids as they are attacked in the spiritual warfare that's happening across the country. And I'll give you a great example. So we just found out 2 months ago from our 8-year-old that back during Thanksgiving, the teacher was reading the kids a book about the Pilgrims. And there was a page in the book that said the Pilgrims just wanted to be able to worship their God in the way that they chose appropriate, something to that effect. The teacher took out the word God so that nobody would be offended. Well, we didn't find out about that from our kiddo until just a couple of months ago, because these things are happening subliminally, subtly, quietly. And she told us about that months ago. What else is happening that we don't know about? What else are they forcing into the minds of our kids to confuse them and to change the narrative, to replace science and math and reading with social and emotional learning? They're literally swapping out lessons in basic education for social and emotional learning. We are in some terrifying times.
You know, a lot of parents, there is a debate, as I mentioned, among Christians, whether or not, you know, look, a lot of people, a lot of Christians, they have their kids in public school and they're monitoring, like you guys clearly are, to see what is going on. And then they might make a decision based on that. Some schools, this hasn't hit those schools yet. Others, obviously, it has. Are you of a particular view when it comes up to whether or not Christians should remove their kids from public schools definitively? Is it something we should sort of follow how we feel called by God on? What is your take on that particular question of should Christians have their kids in those schools?
Man, brother, I think you and I could probably do a 4-hour-long episode having that conversation. I think it is a decision for the family. Listen, not every family is blessed to be in a financial position where they have a parent who could stay home full-time to teach the kids. We're in some very difficult economic times. It's a very personal decision for the family. And my heart goes out to every family that's struggling to make that call right now, because you're being forced to choose between how do I provide for my family to make sure that we can pay the mortgage, and how do I provide for the hearts and souls of my child? How do I make sure that I give them the greatest opportunity to know and love Christ as I can by homeschooling them, perhaps? And so what's more important than your decision whether or not you can afford to, or you're in a position to take care of your kids at home and homeschool them, is how are we monitoring them? How are we getting in the fight? We launched AmericanDads.org to get parents in the fight, not just dads, but all parents to come sign a petition to declare basically that if you feel it's appropriate to talk about sexuality with a 3rd grader and you are not the parent of that child, then you don't belong anywhere near children. And so parents have to get in the fight at the ground level here. And first and foremost, more important than anything, understand what's happening in the schools. Be educated about what's going on under your noses and what they are doing to your children. This is no longer it's not happening here. This is happening in your town. This is happening to your child. We don't have a choice anymore but to get in the fight. I don't want to take this fight. I don't want to be the spokesperson for this, but someone has to fight for our innocent kids.
Yeah, it did feel like for a while there was an argument of this isn't happening. I mean, I've heard that a lot. Oh, these things aren't happening. This is being blown out of proportion. And then when there's evidence of it, it sort of shifts to, well, this is what we have to do to make the kids good citizens of the world, right? So that they can respect and love everybody. And so it is an interesting dynamic. But getting back to your particular circumstance, you said that the principal, in your view, doubled down after. Were you given the chance, you and the other concerned parents, to speak with school leaders? Is there any dialogue that might still unfold, even though you pulled the kids out? I'm just kind of curious to know where that communication stands right now.
You know, everybody's curious about that. So the superintendent was asked by the media, didn't make an official statement, just said this is being handled internally. There was a Board of Education meeting on Wednesday night where more than 200 people showed up via Zoom and countless other people in the room. And the Board of Education, which is overwhelmingly conservative, they're my people, right? They were gracious enough to extend the public comment from 20 minutes to 30 minutes because God forbid we interrupt their ability to get their beauty sleep done, right? And so people were infuriated, whether you're on the left or the right. People had something to say. They said, listen, we voted you into office. You have to stay here until 2 o'clock in the morning if that's what it takes, because we're all here. The one thing we all have in common is we are fighting for what we believe is the best interest of our child. Now, I don't agree with how people on the left in this particular case or people who are anti-Christian are fighting for their kids, but I respect the fact that they are in that room and vocal and having that conversation.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on today and talk with us about this. What's your final message to parents, those who are sort of watching you make this decision? Maybe they're concerned about what's going on in their schools and they're kind of looking for guidance. What would you say to them?
Stand up and first educate yourself and then fight. I'm not talking about a physical fight. That's the last thing that we need in this country right now. But fight at the grassroots level. A company called Align Us contacted us, said, parents could actually go review schools and let everybody know how woke they are. Let everybody know what's being shared in terms of books. Go to AmericanDads.org and get in the fight there. We're going to help get parents into the fight for the local boards of education who are going to flip these values and bring them back to the values to preserve and protect our kids. So educate yourself and do whatever it takes, regardless of what society says is acceptable, to fight for the hearts and souls of not just your children. This isn't just about your kids and my kids anymore, guys. This is about all of the children out there. If we don't fight for the kids, who's going to?
Kyle, appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us.
Was it AmericanDads.org? We're definitely going to be reaching out to them. Like I said, you heard it. This is the same thing we've been talking about, is ground level changes, right? I've spoken about, taking kids out of, I remember I said, 100,000, 500,000. If we start taking our children out of the schools, now, notice he talked about, being blessed to where, they can move to Florida and he can still take care of their bills and his wife can still homeschool. Everybody's not in that position, right? And so the homeschooling is one aspect, right? But then also creating private and charter schools is another aspect to where if we have enough people to unify, if we have enough people to come together, right, and we are able to get funded, we are able to get land and build schools and make them affordable. A lot of private schools are, very expensive, but we want to create the same thing, but make it affordable for not just the wealthy or not just the privileged, but for anybody that does not want to have to fight against the school or be afraid when you drop your children off at school. What are they being taught? Who are they talking to if an incident happens? Are they referred to a therapist or are the parents called, right? The first line is the parents, not a therapist, right? Then there needs to be agreement. Do I want my children talking to a therapist? Or I can talk to my children when they get home, right? But that option is being erased. That's the problem. The option of, hey, parents, this is what may be going on or that what may be going on. But wait a minute, this isn't even the therapy of what's going on. This is the therapy saying, hey, do you feel like can we influence this child? So it's not even a true therapy, right? It's not even a true, whatever you're dealing with, you can come talk to us. It's more of, hey, let us talk to you and ask you, what do you feel about the opposite sex and you putting on a dress? How does that, do you think that you might like that? That's not therapy. No. That's a motive. Yep. Right? And so That's what the gentleman, the dad from Connecticut, he would say. It's not his children. It's not just my children. It's all of it's children that we have to make a stand and we have to fight. Now, one of the things that they mentioned is they talk about gay pride, right? Gay pride. And, most people, what do we think about when we hear pride? We think of, oh, I'm proud of something, or I'm proud to be this, I'm proud. Yeah, that's one way to look at it, right? But pride, according to God, is not a good thing. No. And so there's this flag of gay pride, of opposite of family pride, opposite of nature, right? Natural. It's natural for a man and a woman to be attracted to each other. It is not natural for two men or two women to be attracted to each other. And so what happens is, you heard what the Father also said, a spiritual warfare, which that is the case, because the forces that we're dealing with, they're not nice, they're not friendly, they're not kind, right? As soon as they're spoken about or criticized or exposed, they immediately start attacking. So how is that something good, right? How is that something peaceful, which this is what it's claiming to be? Yeah. Equal justice, correct? Mm-hmm. But I just want to jump in and share a little scripture, Proverbs 6. It talks about the 6 things that God hates, right? It says, we're in Proverbs 6, verse 16, it says, these 6 things the Lord hates, indeed 7 are an abomination to him. A proud look, right? The spirit that makes one overestimate himself and underestimate others. Wow. Well, if we put that in the context of what we're dealing with, that's exactly what the gay pride, transgender, homosexual, all inclusive, that's exactly their outlook, is they need to be what they are, exalted and recognized. And if you don't recognize us, then you're under us. Mm-hmm. You're a terrorist. You're a bigot. You're a racist, right? Yep. It's all these attacks, but that's coming from that proud spirit of we're better and our rights are more important than your rights. Now, I want everybody to understand, I don't try to control anybody's life or try to say that how you choose to live your life is right or wrong. What I'm saying is well, guess what? If you choose to live a certain way, then that is your choice. That's one thing. But to make it law that children that are children, still minors, at 12 years old, can be mutilated, and we can do that without your permission, that's not equal rights, and that's not we have our rights as a gay pride, as a gay this, as a homosexual, as a transgender. You went beyond that. Because now you've made it law, number one, here in California, that you can kill a child after it's born. Now, how people justify or try to explain that, there's something that got to be mentally sick with you. But also that to chop on children, to cut little girls' breasts off, to remove a little boy's genitals. Like these are laws now. That's why we have to do what we're doing. Like the Father said, I didn't want to be a spokesman for this. This was not on my agenda. Yeah. Right? Life plan is I'm gonna have to go fight against and try to gather as many people as I can to fight against stopping children from being butchered. That wasn't in my game plan, right? Life throws us curveballs, but yet here we are, and I believe it's because when it started in 1963, when we removed God from the schools, we removed Bible and prayer from the schools, all the stats, you can't argue with facts. You can't argue with truth. When you see all the numbers and the millions and all the decrease and the increase and all of the bad every area of bad increased and continues to increase the moment we remove God from schools. Now, if people argue out of ignorance all the time, right? And if you notice, the one doctor that was reading the truth and reading the stats, the woman that was sitting next to her kept snarling and making faces. Well, that's who she's talking about, right? So she's being exposed, right? So understand that people that really care, then that means you care about everyone. You don't just care about one side if we're talking about equal justice, right? So back to the scripture, it says, a lying tongue and hands that shed innocent blood. Oh, guess what? Killing babies is shedding innocent blood. So we have a proud people that say, I'm proud to be this, I'm proud to be twisted, I'm proud to be against nature, I'm proud to be opposite of what's natural. Like we talked about in the animal kingdom, you don't see two male lions trying to get together. They're trying to kill each other for the women. That's pretty much, you can go down the line. You can go to bulls, you can go to wood, whatever animal you want to name, that's usually what's happening. The males are fighting over the females. They're not loving each other. And so if we did that, guess what? There's a whole lot of food that we wouldn't be able to enjoy. If the animals decided to do what the mankind is doing, then a lot of animals wouldn't exist nowadays. And so common sense has to be put into the equation, because we're also living in a time where common sense is very uncommon. How a teacher can get up and talk about, I had no intentions of harm, but the little girl's going home shaking and screaming because she's horrified she's going to turn into a boy because that's what her teacher told her. But you're really trying to help. This is all deception, folks. And a lot of people don't have answers for these things. But that's why we're here. We're giving answers, and we're lining up from the word and giving the evidence of this is how it goes, right? Shed innocent blood. So number one, when they're telling our children, when they're coercing our children, you heard Ms. Jessica, her daughter was coerced behind her back. So that's a lying tongue, right? I'm a gay proud, I'm a gay transgender, I'm proud, gay pride month, okay? That also goes into I'm better than you. You're under me. That's the spirit of pride, right? A heart that manufactures wicked thoughts and plans. Listen, what's going on with our children, that's not a coincidence. No. And it's not a rights movement, a civil rights movement. That's what they're trying to say. This is civil rights. No, you have the right to become whatever you want to become, but you do not have the right to take innocent lives, and you do not have the right to mandate and force parents and children to be mutilated and then told that that's okay. So the people that thought about this, they have wicked and evil hearts. Yep. But see, we want to take it as is everyone has a voice and everybody. That's true. But when you're manufacturing, so they're manufacturing, think about it. If you have doctors that are not in cosmetic surgery, that they're trying to push on all doctors. The eye doctor, we have an eye doctor that went to the board with the eye doctors, and it was introduced to start doing transgender surgeries. He resigned from the board because he said, I can't be a part of anything like that. He's he's one of the best eye doctors in the world. He has no expertise in mutilating people, and he doesn't want to do that. And then there's all kind of lawsuits, which we'll probably get into that. There's all kind of lawsuits of people that had these surgeries by doctors that were not accredited or not have any knowledge in cosmetic surgery. And they're messed up for life. Yep. That's not being talked about, but maybe we'll be able to get some of them to be able to be on our show to expose what's really going on more. So look, if you look at these things from a spiritual aspect and from a writings aspect, you will see that everything is lining up with the scripture. Yep. Right? a heart that manufactures wicked thoughts and plans, feet that are swift to running to evil. So you have people that are quickly trying to get as many children involved and manipulated into this as possible. This is evil if you don't know. If you don't know that this is evil, I pray for you to something to happen that you can understand that this is not normal, this is not okay, right? Okay. And a false witness who breathes out lies even under oath. We have that going on daily, where people going right underneath oath and lying. These are things that God hates, right? And he who sows discord amongst his brethren. Okay, now I want to play. Now we're going to get into. Now you heard the first man, the father, that talked about. I think what brought it to his attention was about the girls' bathroom, the daughter going into the boys' bathroom, or boys being allowed to go into their bathroom. That's all being done right now as well, and this is not new. This is old, and I have my own stories of battling against the Oceanside School District, where we took hundreds of people down there, and they didn't really care what we had to say. And what we were fighting against, and this was in 2017, it had already been going on for 2 or 3 years before that.
Yep.
But it was on where they're going to implement from kindergarten to 12th grade about anal and oral sex.
Yeah,
it's called the 3 R's.
Fourth grade question.
Yeah, 3 R's. And there's a whole curriculum of pornography. We've seen it. We know. We were down there every week. At the school board's meetings with the superintendent, with all the board members. Like the man said, we voted for you to be in there. And so, and guess what? They didn't care. We had 4,500 signatures of parents that were not in agreement with this to stop this from going into place, and they still passed it. And that was 5 years ago. So it hasn't stopped. And just to put one more fact out there, in all of California, Oceanside is known for the most, for all those that live down there, that's my city, that's where I'm from, is they're the most school district to where all the state funds that come in to the Oceanside School District, only 10% of those funds go actually to the students. 90% of the funds are split up amongst the teachers and the board members. That is a real fact. That Oceanside is number 1 in all of California, to where 90% of state funds to go for the schooling goes to salaries of the parents and the school attendants and the district members. So anyways, this last video we're going to show is very sad. It's very heartbreaking. We got to see Jessica. She got liberated, her and her daughter, and they sued the state and they won. The father in Connecticut, he took his children out. Well, now we have a story, a real life story of a video of a mother that it didn't end well, and it's very sad. It touches home. So I want to play it so we can get a real reality check of how close to home this is. And the law, she had to fight the law. All right, so let's go ahead and play that video.
This one?
Yep, that's the one.
I am Sage's mother, better known as Nana. I adopted Sage after my son died when she was still a baby. She's been through 6 foster homes by then, but we loved her, and she blossomed into a joyful, lively girl who made music and art. Puberty began and COVID hit, and she was treated for depression and anxiety, at times very severe. Her teachers shared any concerns with me so her treatment could be adapted. The transparency ended in August of 2021 when Sage started high school. She started a public high school, and she told me that all the girls there were bi, trans, lesbian, emo, and she wanted to wear boys' clothes and be emo. Because I saw it as just a phase, it was fine with me. But at school, she told them something different. She was now a boy named Draco with male pronouns. Sage asked the school not to tell me, and they did not tell me, even though I informed them of her mental health history and medication. If I had known, this would be a much different story. She was terribly bullied. No one told me, but boys followed her, touched her, threatened violence and rape. Something happened in the boys' bathroom, but for 2 days, the school told me nothing. They kept meeting with Sage alone, and she became so distraught, they called me to pick her up. That evening, I found a hall pass labeled Draco, and Sage told me she was identifying as a boy, and that her counselor said she could use the boys' bathroom. She'd been jacked up against the wall by a group of boys. She was crying, terrified. I said, just stay home, we'll figure it out. That was my last conversation with Sage for 5 months. The night she ran, she thought to a young friend she'd met online. She left a note saying she was scared of what would happen if she stayed. The sheriff, FBI, search dogs were called in. I dropped to my knees in prayer. 9 days later, the FBI found her in Baltimore. My baby had been lured online, sex trafficked by DC, then Maryland. She was locked in a room, drugged, gang raped, and brutalized by countless men. It was night. The FBI told us to pick her up in Maryland the next morning. We packed our cars with blankets and stuffed animals and arrived by 8 a.m. But we were told we couldn't see her and were summoned before Judge Robert Kershaw late that afternoon. They didn't even tell Sage that we came for her. We finally entered the courtroom, and Sage appears on a huge Zoom screen from a prison cell. She looks tiny and broken, and I cry out, "I love you, Sage." Sage responds, "I love you too, Nana." But attorney Anissa Khan rebukes us. She is a he, and his name is Draco, not Sage. We were floored. What? Khan accuses us of emotional and physical abuse, that we are misgendering her. Even though we just learned she claims to be trans and we're willing to use any name and pronouns to bring her home. My husband was so tearful he kept forgetting the new pronouns, so the judge had the bailiff remove him from the courtroom. I was pleading for my child to be returned and treated for her unspeakable trauma. Judge Kershaw told me if I used the word trauma again, he would throw me out too. For over 2 months, he withheld custody. He housed Sage in a male quarters of a children's home. Sage told me she was the only girl and repeatedly assaulted. She was given street drugs by the other kids, and Khan told her she didn't care. She just wanted to win the case and all the way to Supreme Court if necessary. Khan tried to prove abuse, but we were eventually cleared by both states of all charges. Sage later told me Khan had told her to lie, that we hit her. Khan even had Sage's school counselors testify against us, though they barely knew Sage, and they didn't know us at all. Khan told my precious child I didn't want her anymore. I found out Sage never received any of the letters I sent her. Sage ran from the children's home and disappeared for months. They told me she might already be gone forever, but I couldn't give up, and I finally found a tip on her social media that led the marshals to her in Texas. She had been drugged, raped, beaten, and exploited. This time I was able to be with her for the traumatic rape exam and to bring her home. Back in Virginia, she entered the mental health facility that Judge Kershaw had ordered, as it would affirm her as a male. The therapist began pressuring her to have her healthy breasts removed. Sage was too scared to protest, but she asked me to secretly buy her girls' clothes because she wanted to be a girl, but keep them in the car. It took a kind lawyer, Josh Hetzler, to secure her discharge. After almost a year, Sage was finally home, safe, alive. Sage is receiving professional trauma care. The first trafficker has already been convicted. Sage has nightmares, panic attacks, rape-related medical issues, but there's hope. I told her she's not broken, she's just scarred. And part of that hope is that in courageously sharing her story, others will be saved. Sage said she doesn't know who she was back then. She wasn't a boy. She just wanted to have friends. But her school, the judge, the attorney, and the doctor were all blinded by their ideology. The consequences for Sage were unspeakable. Please don't let ideology harm another child. Let parents do our jobs. We know our children best, and we love them a million times more.
Now, it's extremely traumatic. And when she used the word traumatic in court, the judge threatened her. Now, this is already after she had been raped and abused. And in the court, the attorney and the judge were demanding for them, seeing their child on the screen, to call her a boy and do not address her as a girl. This is their child who they're raising, who's a little girl who just wanted friends. See, all these things happen from small things that are they're huge personally, right? But when the wrong things are being taught and influenced, then this can be the result. Now, if you notice, it started with her just mentioning to be a boy and then calling herself, going through a phase, but end up being in the boys' bathroom. And it started from there. And that's one of the things that you heard the other father talk about. The boys had went into his daughter's bathroom. And so that is the reality of what's going on. And there's many different stories of prisoners, men saying they identify with women and they're criminals and they're getting put in women prisons, and women prisoners are coming up pregnant all over the place because they're putting males that identify as women. No one is really thinking about, hey, that criminal people, they look for opportunities. So you have a sicko that says all I have to do is identify with a woman, and I'm already a criminal, and I get to be put with all the criminal women. That's a heyday. And so they're not thinking about that. They're thinking about a check.
Yep.
They're thinking about a title being accepted into society, right? Everything in society is not right. And just because a majority of people are doing it doesn't make it right. And so this woman, notice it started from a seed. And then by the daughter not being able to say what happened to her or talk about the traumatic experience of what happened to her in the boys' bathroom at school. So when she dropped her daughter at school to learn about education, her daughter was being assaulted because she's being viewed as a boy and being told by the counselor, you are a boy and you can go in the boys' bathroom. And then you have real boys that are not thinking about anything but, hey, you're a girl, you want to be one of us? This is how. And so these things are taking place. That whole incident took place at school without the mother knowing until she came back home. Then when she expressed to her, then guess what? The daughter feels like, I can't talk, or no one's understanding, and so she runs away. And then that causes a whole life change, and almost it's the grace of God that she survived all of that with grown men. And then when she got back, when they found her, they put her in a prison cell. And the parents weren't even able to talk to her. Like, the parents did this. And then put into a male, all-boys facility group home where it just continues. So this is extremely sad, but it's happening everywhere. And we have to be aware that, hey, you don't know what's going to happen when you drop your children at school. There was a time where we didn't have to think like that, but that time is long gone. And these life-altering, life-changing, you heard Jessica talk about it, these aren't mistakes that they made as children. A child making a mistake is, they tore their brand new pants because they were running, during recess. That's a mistake. Or I forgot to bring my iPad from charging last night and I forgot to bring it to school. That's a mistake. Being told you're a girl but you're really a boy and it's okay and you don't have to let your parents know. You can let us know how you feel and we have things that we can help you with those feelings, and start giving them hormone drugs and start planting seeds in them to get a surgery and we can get you approved. And hey, guess what? It even goes further. If you have friends in other states that feel like you, if you can help them run away to California, we'll protect them and we'll get them to where they can join with you too. All this is going while we're at work trying to pay our bills and provide for our families. This is what's taking place in our public schools. And here in California, our governor, he's the main corporate and he is not stopping. He's creating more litigation. He's creating more pressing laws on taking away parental rights. And if you stand up against him, you have a major financial battle on your hands. That's why we have to come together. So I just want to end with another scripture that's in Proverbs once again, and we're still talking about the pride and talking about lying and twisting and all these things that we're seeing that's taking place. Is Proverbs 16, verse 5. Can we get it up on the screen, please, so everyone can see? Okay. It says, Proverbs 16, 16:5. Everyone proud and arrogant in heart is disgusting, hateful, and exceedingly offensive to the Lord. Be assured, I pledge it, they will not go unpunished. So this spirit of pride that we have a right to teach your children this. We have a right to make sure your children know about this. And we have a right to twist them and influence them. Well, guess what? That comes from a hateful heart. There's no protection. There's no, I want to preserve. There's none of that in there, right? And so, anyways, a lot more to come. Thank you guys for joining. We are trying to gain land. We are trying to build buildings. We are trying to create schools. We are trying to create charter schools, private schools, preschools. These are all things, youth centers, to help battle against this and actually be effective. So we're seeing that there are people that are doing this and they're being effective, and we're trying to join and connect with all the people that are in agreement of trying to save our children. So I'm Gabriel Babin. I'm grateful to all the support. I'm grateful to all of the subscribers and all those passing out the message and trying to make more awareness. As you heard the father say that, this is not something we chose to do. This is not something we even believe that we would have to do, but it is a reality, and it's at our doorsteps. It's in our homes. It's right here in our faces, and it's time to step up. It's time to stand out. It's time to be boisterous. It's not time. We're not trying to go down there and beat up all the teachers, because that's not how we get this done. No. We get this done by removing people. We get this done by removing our children. We get this done by causing them to lose money. See, what we don't understand is they need us. They need our children, or whatever school it is, it can't sustain, right? So if we start emptying out schools, those schools can't be sustained. And once those schools start being emptied, then we get their attention to say, hey, guess what? Your funding is going down the drain. So you're going to have to work on trying to fund a bunch of empty schools, or change your policy and get back to teaching our children about science, math, social studies, English, things that they're going to need in life. to grow and leave. And guess what? You know who the therapists are in our children's lives? Us.
Yep.
That means that we have to take the time, we have to pay attention, we have to ask our children questions, we got to give them the opening to be able to talk to us, right? So that they're not going to talk to some stranger, because look what happens. The professionals in their life that are supposed to educate them are influencing them to talk to other professionals on things that we don't agree with. And then they don't have to explain, they don't have to talk to us about it. So we are our children's therapists. The Lord has given us instructions on how to raise our children so that our children are secure. Our children know who they are. They're confident. They're bold about what they believe, right? They understand what they believe, and they understand what's right and what's wrong. And they understand that if another adult who may seem like there's someone that's supposed to help, but if they're telling you something wrong by the teaching that we're giving in our homes, then our children know, hey, I promise you. You know, I got in 5th grade, I was sent to the principal's office in 5th grade because I brought my Bible to school. So I transitioned from private school to public school, and it was a major culture shock for me. And bringing my Bible to school was an everyday thing from grades 1 through till I got to 5th grade. So, and then I actually got in an argument with my teacher because she was trying to tell me something that was not true, and I knew from the Bible that was true. I was in 5th grade now, and I got, my penalty was I got recess taken away, I got lunch taken away, and my parents were called, and my parents came to the school, my mother came to the school, and she said, yeah, that's what we teach him. So meaning you're not going to penalize our child for what we're teaching him is right, and he's standing up for what's right. Now, children, when they know the truth and they're confident, you can't change their mind.
That's right.
Right? So at 5th grade, there's no way that any teacher would be to tell me, you're really a girl. And if you feel like a girl, you can talk to us about it. At 5th grade, I knew, no, I'm a boy and something's wrong with you. That's because of the teaching that I got at home from my parents, and I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful for having parents that stood and taught me right. And that's what I'm trying to do with the children that are involved, that I'm involved in their lives, is teaching them right so that they'll have the boldness and they'll have the courage, and make them aware that they're now facing a lot of things that are not good, and they have to stand. And you'll be surprised. Children are very strong when they're confident and they know the truth. When they're confused and afraid, that's when they're vulnerable. And I'm not saying children are not vulnerable. What I mean is when a child knows what's right and true in their heart, there's nothing no adult that's telling them that's wrong can change that. So we have to take this, to the next level. So anyways, I'm glad that you joined. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for anyone that has donated. We'll be back next week, and we look forward to having a few guests starting to come on the show. Yeah. We'll be giving you an update. Maybe next week or the next 2 weeks we'll have Jessica on, but things are rolling. So thank you. God bless you all, and we're here to stand, and we're here together. You have a good night, and God bless.